Hello, and welcome to Let Me Tell You a Story podcast, produced by ED Media. Today's story is from the best-selling novel, Journey to the Kingdom of Soul, written by author Everlazt. Chapter 24. The first tier of Industriarmy soldiers marched on foot through the wooded forest, as the sun beamed down on them through the thick 50-foot-tall oak trees. The group of 1,000 men kept their spirits high and the tension to a minimum as they shared old stories and jokes to pass the time. Once the first 50 men got within 30 yards of the mouth of the forest, a barrage of arrows rained down on them from within the tall trees. "Oh, look out!" A mass scramble broke out as soldiers that weren't hit ducked for cover. Bodies crashed down to the ground with arrows lodged in their head, shoulders, and chest. Screams of agony and pain filled the air, causing an unexpected chaotic scene. "What's going on down there?" the frontline captain asked, as he watched his surge stop, then push backwards instead of forwards. "Captain, we're under attack." A discouraged soldier bawled as he tried to get out of the way of the stampede. "Stand down. Stand down," the captain barked. He pulled out his sword as a group of 20 soldiers surrounded him for his protection. "Take cover," the captain ordered, feeling the need to regroup. The arrows stopped flying, but no one could tell from the mangled disorder where the initial attack had come from. The dead were laid out with bewildered expressions on their faces, while the wounded cried out for help and tried fleeing to safety. "Attack!" Brigade leader Elliot called out from his position in the shadows. The Brook warriors dropped down out of the trees and appeared from behind 5-foot bushels with their swords drawn and a fire in their eyes. A massive sword fight broke out with many of the Industriarmy soldiers holding their ground. "Ah, you bastards! Prepare to die. You filthy pigs will die for coming to our land." Elliot beamed with a fire in his eyes his troops fed off of. "Chief, the south end is beginning to advance on us." Elliot looked over, then said, "Tell them to break the ground." The messenger ran off and Elliot stepped back into the heated battle. Swords swung and blood sprayed up into the air as the Brook warriors fought like the desperate defenders they were. The Brook archers who were hiding in the trees slid down on vines and fell back, like they were instructed to do. As the ground crew took out as many Industriarmy soldiers as they could in the heated battle. The Industriarmy captain was mortified at the sight of some of his soldiers running from the minor onslaught. "Kill all those who attempt to retreat," he ordered. Then he turned to one of his men and said, "Tell the men to push through the resistance on the north and south sides." "Yes, sir." The protective barrier that surrounded the captain made a fearless push forward. First killing any man that tried to flee the scene, then they moved on to the head-to-head battle with the Brook warriors. The screams and cries from the injured drowned out the roars and grunts of the assaulter. Blood soaked the grass and the smell of the dead began to rise as the reinforcements began to arrive. On the south side of the forest, the army was held down by a hailstorm of arrows from the Brook archers, while a team of 25 men with water, shovels, and large pickaxes loosened the land until it began to give way. "Step back. The ground is caving," someone cried. "More water. We need more water." The Brook men continued to work feverishly on turning the dirt to mud. The captain said to forage ahead. Someone barked in the midst of the confusion. "Even under the archer attack?" one soldier asked, pointing up to the trees. "Yes. And those who refuse or retreat will be killed," the messenger barked with his sword out and ready to carry out the order. "Yes, sir. The surge will be pushed," a senior soldier said. Then he turned to the rest of the men and said, "You heard the captain. Charge." "Fire!" echoed from the treetops as a rain of arrows flooded the surging army. Chapter break. The war drums rumbled as the rest of the Industriarmy marched on to the Brook. All of the pre-battle jitters were put on hold until they reached their destination. A 1,000-man battalion led the way as the first line of attack, followed closely by Commander Gossi and his 1,500-man unit of archers. In the middle tier of the march was the strongest group of soldiers accompanied by Major Zor. The small but deadly body of Knight's men was led by the top Knight Fungi. In the middle of Knight's men formation, Timu sat high on his black stallion, lost in his own thoughts as he rode on the side of Fungi. Zor tried to keep his mind off of Nipoli and the last taste of beauty she left in his memory. But it was turning out to be a fruitless battle against himself, because the only words he could hear in his mind were the words from Niploy's send-off song to the army. The steady thumping of the war drums helped the major escape his thoughts of the songstress and her powerful words. Lightly nodding his head like a man falling into a trance, Commander Al-Hadik rode on the side of the major, focusing on the task at hand, until Zor interrupted his thoughts. Did the scout make contact with the front line? Al-Hadik chewed on the butt of his tobacco leaf roll-up, as the tip burned slowly. No. But we are almost at the clearing end of the forest. Feeling like he could get a little personal with the commander, Zor asked, Al-Hadik, how many of these have we done together? This wasn't a question the commander was expecting from the major. Especially since his mind was on the pain and destruction he was ready to administer to their next target. But the major had been doing a lot of strange things lately. Al-Hadik had reasoned with himself as he steadied his horse to keep going straight. Major. Honestly, I've lost count. Why, does this one feel like the biggest one we've done together or something? Al-Hadik asked, blowing smoke out of his nostrils. Commander, this will definitely be one of our biggest battles together, Zor said. But, I think the question I should be asking is, if I'm not around for the next campaign, will you be able to carry the torch in my absence? Al-Hadik let the question marinate for a moment before he answered. Major, being older than you has never come in the way of me being able to learn a lot from you. And even though it was a blessing from the gods of force, to be able to witness the leadership of the best major I ever seen lead the army, I feel confident enough to say yes, I can lead the army in your absence if it came down to it. Pleased with the commander's response, Zor nodded his head and rode on in silence. Zor let his thoughts travel back to the days when he was promoted to overseeing major of the Industriarmy. Zor knew it was a position that should have been given to a more seasoned soldier like Al-Hadik, but Timus liked Zor's brutality on the battlefield and promoted him to major of the army. I know you don't plan on retiring on me, Al-Hadik joked. Zor broke a rare smile and said, only if I can go out on top. That's the only way to go, Al-Hadik said. But you sound like this may be your last stand. Some days I feel like it will be. Zor, you have a lot of years ahead of you. At 35 you have a lot of energy, and there's more than enough room for you to build on your impressive legacy, Al-Hadik said. Thanks, old friend, Zor said. The scout is coming, sir, someone called out, as the young soldier galloped through the formation. What is it, Sean? Al-Hadik asked without breaking his stride. Sean turned his horse around and got in step with the commander and major. Sir, the front line was attacked, Sean quickly reported. The commander remained silent, seeming unfazed by the news. Major Zor looked over to Al-Hadik and said, well, if it's a fight they want, then that's what they shall have. Blowing smoke out of his nostrils, Al-Hadik looked over to Zor with a sinister grin and said, now we're talking my language, as they forged on with their campaign.
Hey everyone, it's author Everlazt. I want to thank you for listening to Let Me Tell You a Story podcast. Tune in for the next episode. God bless and be safe.